I'd rather be with you. Yeah.
All right, everybody, welcome to Good Vibe Radio. I'm Alice, the CEO of the family, and I am with Bénédicte today. And as in every Good Vibe, the goal is to spend 40 minutes together to discover a new entrepreneur, someone you may have not heard of actually, and you're going to discover who is this amazing entrepreneur. And the main purpose of Good Vibes is to keep our energy up. We started since the very beginning of the crisis, and we need some inspiration. We need some good vibes from entrepreneurs, and that's why I try to select amazing ones. And we'll go through the path of their entrepreneurial life and how they've been going during the crisis since the beginning of the confinement, and as well why they do what they do. As a mission in their life. How are you, Bénédicte?
I'm not bad. I'm pretty good. Thanks.
Yeah, you feel good. Where are you right now?
I'm in Paris in my apartment near Montmartre. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Nice view, and where I had spent the whole lockdown, in fact, as well.
How was your confinement?
Because, we just sold Clustree in January. And then the confinement happened in March. And so we had to make the whole integration of the company during the lockdown. So we didn't have the occasion to celebrate and to spend time with people, to meet all the person from CSOD, even if, of course, we met them before the confinement and during the M&A process. But yeah, it was a bit weird. But at the end, it was cool. I was there with my man, my sister, the 3 kids of my man, and it was fun.
So cool. All right, so we're going to go through this because it's not that often that we meet entrepreneurs who've been through the M&A process. And for you, it's really recent. And I saw that you wrote an article to go through all of the steps of this long road. We're going to go through it. But first, let's start by the beginning. What is Clustree?
So it's a French VC-backed startup. We were a pioneer in AI applied to HR, and the idea was to help democratizing career development for all employees by making skills the currency of work, if I can say that. So what we did is we developed an AI-powered skills platform for employee development. We had one of the world's most sophisticated skills engines. We used both machine learning and bias-free algorithm to help big companies, so it's large organization, our customers, to match their employees with different stuff, such as specific job roles, career path, learning courses, that kind of stuff. And so all that was based on an ontology that we consolidated from almost 1.2 billion skills. And at the end, we had a 53K unique and verified skills ontology to describe any employee profile from any industry. And so, as we said, we were acquired last January by Cornerstone for almost $20 million.
All right. So, congratulations. Let's simplify a little bit the problem, because the problem is not that obvious. And also, we're going to go through the very beginning because the story is really interesting. So if I understand it well, the problem when it comes to the problem that you tackle with Clustree, is the fact that it's hard within a big corporation to find the talents at the right jobs. It's not only about hiring from the outside, but it's also about the mobility inside of the people who are already aware of the culture, the employees. They are aware of the culture of the company, they love the company, but they are stuck in a certain position.
Yeah, exactly. It's about all this. It's about really understanding people's skills and abilities so that you can better recruit, better manage mobility, better manage career path. And this is something that is really hard for companies to do, even if it's increasingly important, because we do see fundamental shifts in work. So we know that automation and AI will impact a lot of jobs. 30% of activities will have tomorrow to work with an AI, to monitor an AI. We know that there is an increasing skills gap between people. I don't know if you see that on the market, but there is a few high-skilled workers, but a lot of positions open for those guys. And there is a lot of low-skilled workers, but only few positions open. So we see kind of a polarization of the labor market. And also the work models are evolving. You have independent work, you have the gig economy, you have companies that don't know if they should buy skills on the market, borrow skills with that independent work, or build skills internally through what you said, which is internal mobility. And all companies are a bit lost around that because they don't know the skills that are available to their organization, internally or externally. So this is what we are trying to tackle.
So let's say I am L'Oreal. I'm using Clustree. You had L'Oreal as a
No, we don't have them.
Okay, so give me a real client.
Yeah, Orange, for instance.
Orange, okay. Let's say I'm Orange. Using Clustree, I am. What am I able to do? I mean, how does it work? I'm the HR person using it.
So yeah, both employees and HR people have access to the solution. So let's say you are Orange. The thing is, you have 100K employees. But you have one HR manager for 1,000 employees. So if you really want to understand the skills of your people and what they can do internally, how you can motivate them, what career path they can have, you need to have one HR manager for 50%, but you have one for 1,000. So when you're Orange, you only know 5% of your population, high potential, best performers, executive. It means that 95% of your 100K employees are left alone. You don't know them. They don't know how they can evolve internally. They have no clue. So what you have as a user of Clustree, an HR manager or an employee, is you go to the product, you just put your job title or you put your resume in, and Clustree will detect the skills you have based on your career path, based on the job you did, based on everything we find on a resume or just the job title. Once we do that, we're also able to identify the level you have in each skill. And once we have that, we can match you with the relevant training courses, for instance, to fix a skills gap, or the relevant career path within the organization, or the relevant job that is open right now and you just have to apply to it. So in fact, it's a career coach, a digital career coach for all employees, enabling the company to address and to support 100% of its population, and also to deeply understand all the employees they have.
I love stories. Tell me a story of one person who used to be doing this job in this company and then moved to a totally different job in the same company, but he had the skill actually.
Yeah, so we have different type of stories. We have, for instance, a woman that was working in HR. She was, in fact, one of our champions. Her name is Véronique Carsanti. She was working in HR and she was, managing career path for a scope at Orange, the same company. And in fact, we understood that she knew really well the company and the skills of people, and she was able to manage big teams. And at the end, she took a job in the same company, but in IT, and managing 50 men. So it was a woman becoming, a team manager of 50 men in IT, and she was coming from HR. So it's a very transversal career path. And it's interesting because if I ask you the question, what a product manager can do, you will naturally think of career paths such as head of growth, head of product, that kind of stuff. But now if I ask you the question, what a person having the skills, product management, of course, but also CRM or, market understanding and, marketing trends can do, you will be able to think of jobs such as head of marketing or also like in sales development. So if we consider skills rather than job title, we're able to have a more diverse, transversal, transparent, and agile workplace. This is the whole idea.
And this is so necessary in big corps and in France.
Specifically in France, yeah.
Yeah. How did you start it? Where do you come from? What's your background? Are your parents entrepreneurs? You are a woman. You don't know.
Yeah.
You haven't been studying engineering, and you're
No,
doing this B2B solution, tech
in
solution
AI.
with AI.
Mhm.
Mm.
So I was born and raised very far from the Parisian and entrepreneurial world. I come from a small village in the south of France. I grew up there in a very loving family with parents that were not entrepreneurs, but worked very, very hard to provide my sister and I with, like pleasing living environment. And so very far from everything we see in the entrepreneur environment. And yes, so as a child, I was mainly surrounded by nature, 3 German shepherds, my family, looking all the time at the sky, wondering what could be up there. And my dream was not to become an entrepreneur. I didn't even know that job exists. My dream was to become an astrophysicist. I
Wow.
don't know how you do it in English.
Yeah, but that's bold already.
It was, yes, it was, because I was fascinated by, everything happening in the sky. I really wanted to understand that. And I had another dream that was very weird because I love that house and that garden. So my dream was to put this in a suitcase and be able to open that suitcase to put my house and a garden everywhere in the world. So yes, that was not possible, of course.
So cute. And so you
I know.
in the countryside. Come back, Bénédicte. Okay. And so why did you study if you didn't study astrophysics?
So I studied math applied to economics. I studied in Aix-en-Provence in the south in France, and I came to Paris to finish my studies in the university. And far from like the grande école pattern we do see from entrepreneurs. And then after studying at university, I worked in a small consulting firm. So it was like 30% firm, very small, not well known during 4 years.
Okay, so 4 years, and then what made you click and want to build a Clustree?
Consulting business is cool because you see a lot of different situations. It's very diverse. You learn a lot, but it's not meaningful. And so after 4 years, I really wanted to do something else. I wanted to change job, but I felt a bit trapped into stereotypes. Being a woman, but mostly not having big logo in my resume, not having prestigious school. And so I was like, what can I do? And if I send my resume to any HR, will they really look at it? And so my idea at that moment was to first understand the skills I had thanks to my job and my studies, and then understand what people with a similar skill set did in terms of job and career path, that maybe I could do the same. And at that moment, I realized that there were not such thing in the market, and that it would be, in fact, something very valuable to help our workplace go from, work based on job title to work based on skills, really reveal potential of people and stop, putting people into stereotypes and boxes.
So it started by a personal frustration. You knew your worth,
yeah,
but you couldn't make it because you didn't have the as you said, the logo on your resume. Okay, and so you understood the big problem. It was not like you didn't know yet if it was a real opportunity, market opportunity, and you started on your own with a PowerPoint, pretending that your solution was already working, showing it to some potential client, you on your own as a solo founder at the very beginning, right? And one potential client said, okay, let's go, and actually paid your first proof of concept.
Exactly. This is how it happened. The first year was almost like that, full of adrenaline, full of luck, in fact, also. So when I decided, to tackle that issue and to become an entrepreneur, I knew nothing about entrepreneurship. I didn't know VC existed. I didn't know what tech was, all that. I was a consultant. And so when I decided to take the plunge, if I can say that. As a good consultant, I sold a freelance consulting mission to GDF Suez, to their HR. The idea was to better understand the market. And with this money, as you said, I paid a UI designer to conceptualize screens of the solution, and the solution didn't exist at that moment. I edited the video, showed it to the CHRO, so the HR director, and suggest them to sign for POC, which they did. And at that point, we had almost 100K on our bank account. And so I went to Le Web, that conference. I met Nicolas Dessaigne from Algolia and other people who told me about the family. I met Oussama, I remember. I chat with him for like 30 minutes. I tell him my story. He tells me, you should raise, friends and family. And I remember that at that moment, not daring asking him what it means, friends and family. I didn't know anything. And so then I'm on my own, raising some funds. It's difficult because most of VCs say no because of my profile, a typical first entrepreneur, no tech co-founder, no product. And finally, Rafi at Alven decided to trust me. Otherwise, Clustree will never have existed. And so after that, once I raised my 600K round, the first year was mainly recruiting tech people so that we can start developing the product that GDF Suez was waiting for.
So you had this first yes from a VC who trusted you, and actually it was also, that's your strength. You are able to convince, Bénédicte, you know that, because you are also the one who used to be at the forefront convincing the client at the beginning, right?
Yeah, sure.
And this, because B2B sales must have been like really intense at Clustree. I can imagine. Can you give me like just the way it's been evolving, what you've been learning about B2B sales in your specific industry, and so that the entrepreneurs who are watching can better understand how they can also, when they start, sign big clients?
Sure. So to give a bit of context, we managed to sign some very good names: Orange, Sanofi, Carrefour, Veolia, that kind of company. So a dozen in total, to analyze their data, to inform their critical decision. It's true that B2B sales is difficult, specifically in HR in large organization, because first, it's companies where the HR world is a world of commodity. Before buying that kind of value proposition, what they bought was, pay and how they can manage the holidays of their employees, that kind of stuff. So it was difficult to come in the market with a value proposition of how we'll change the way you manage employees with AI because we'll put skills instead of job titles. So first, it was a market of commodity. And second, it's large corporate companies that are used to deal with big vendors, with, like IBM and Oracle, that kind of company. So we did some stuff to help, selling to those guys. First, it was building a brand. Because our value proposition is very complex and sophisticated for such a market. So we had to address them with brand and having visibility, having press, speaking through interviews, forum, writing white papers, that kind of stuff, was a way for us to reassure those guys by sending some signals that we were trustable. It's a visible startup. It has raised some funds. The technology is recognized by the press and by some prices, so they are solid. We can trust them. And at the same time, it was also a way to evangelize the market, which was an absolute necessity for us because when we started in the market, and it's still the case today, it's completely new AI applied to HR. And so we needed to make people understand what it could bring to their organization. It was an area that was little explored. So yes, we needed to own the communication ground. So this is one thing. Second thing to address that kind of market is to have one flagship account. And we discussed about them, but having Orange, who trusted us very early, helped us to evangelize the market by testifying, making ref calls, that kind of stuff was really helpful. And one thing also that is important in our case is because we are selling AI, we know that everyone and every professional in HR, knows that AI is critical, that AI is a trend, but no one really understands what AI is. They all have some fluffy ideas, some theoretical opinion on AI. So having a marketing pitch does not make any difference from other vendors that don't have a technology. You need to, all companies in our field have the same marketing pitch. So we need to differentiate. And here the idea was to do demos that proved technology. So we immediately built demos to enable customers go under the hood, see that the technology was real, was solid, using their data, doing it live, enable them to enter any job title and see the skills that were detected from that, using their own resume to do it, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. How many people were working at Clustree?
35 people.
Okay, and what was the composition? Like mainly engineers or sales or?
80% were tech guys, yes, we had some women, but in product, not in tech. So 80% tech person, working on HR data since for over 5 years. Spending 5,000 R&D Mondays to analyze all their career path, 58 million job title, 1.2 billion skills. But yes, and some salesperson, and in fact, something that is a specificity for Clustree is also we had a very senior team for the commercial sales part or customer-facing part, because in this B2B market, those large companies, as I said, are used to deal with IBM and so on, and so they expect that kind of profile. So we choose people that were very, smart and that had the expertise we needed. But our CTO, for instance, was a 50 years old guy coming from Business Subject. Our Chief Customer Officer was also a 50 years old guy coming from Saba, SuccessFactors. So some people that will also be trustable for our customers. So very senior team.
So you really had to adapt to the culture of your client, basically.
Yes.
Yes.
Cool. A lot.
Okay, that's really good advice. Okay, let's switch to the process of the M&A, because it's not that often that it happens, and that's important to be able to talk about it. When was the first moment in your head, Bénédicte, when you started thinking of an exit?
In early 2019.
Mm-hmm. So really late, actually. I mean, you started thinking of like.
Really considering doing an exit during the next year. It was in early 2019, but of course, as a founder, you always have in mind all the options you have: exiting, raising some fund, building like a cool small company that will work by its own. But yeah, when I really considered doing an exit, it was in early 2019.
And then I made the decision. What made you believe it was realistic? I mean, the potential.
I knew the exit was realistic for three main reasons, I think. First, because I knew we had a very strong technology and product that will make potential acquirers go into the buy versus the build option.
So it started with you going to like a bank, M&A bank, a banker, to say, I'm open to an exit, and then how it worked.
So in fact, to give you more context about when I decided, in 2019, we had a very strong product and technology. We had some crazy tech asset nobody else had. But let's face it, we didn't have the growth we had hoped for. Not because there is no market, but because there were two barriers on the market. First, to really unleash the whole potential of the solution, we need to be more integrated to the HR processes. And those processes are managed by mastodons such as Cornerstone, SuccessFactors, Oracle. And the second reason is we needed to cover a broader functional scope to enable the value proposition, to change scale. to generate saving and to really make sense. So we needed to like tackle performance, recruitment, mobility, career path, all that. And here again, you have 4 or 5 big players that share the market, and we didn't have neither the financial base nor the expertise to do this. And so we could have break those barriers by partnership. And early in 2019, I started to think about partnership and to explore commercial partnership. But at that time, I knew that it will have been very difficult to raise some money given, our business growth, and that we had 2 possibilities: or an exit, or, building a small, profitable, nice company. And to answer your question, I knew that the M&A was possible because our tech was very solid and sophisticated. So yeah, it will be the buy versus build balance in our favor. Second, because we knew that it was a big trend on the market and that a lot of companies were very interested in what we do. And the third thing is the valuation of our last round was in a range that enabled me to go and see a lot of companies, even Talitsoft that is 80 million, during 80 million of business, or bigger company. And that will also be combined with a way that VCs and me will make money. So the 2 were possible. And so when we had partnership discussion, I very quickly understood that the exit was the only alternative, because in fact, all those vendors were working on what we did. So in 18 months, all the vendors will have or acquired a company to do it or build it internally. So it means that in 18 months, we'll have less potential acquirers and then less, of course, money and valuation when if we had exited later. And if we wanted to be profitable and, alone, it will mean that it will be even more difficult to sell to customers because all those vendors will have the same offer embedded in their solution. So the exit was the best solution for us, in fact.
All right. And so who introduced you to Cornerstone?
So, in fact, during the M&A process, we hired a banker, of course, but what we did is we hired one of the experts of the HR tech environment, who is Thomas Otter. He's the former chief product officer of SuccessFactors. And we hired him as a consultant because we knew that he had all the network to all those guys. And network is key in M&A. Is do you have access to the decision makers and to the CEO if you can, so that you very quickly have, an answer and if they are serious or not. And so Thomas Otter sent an email to Cornerstone and to other vendors, and then we met Cornerstone. And I met the CEO and founder of Cornerstone at meeting number 2. So it was also very effective.
And how did it go then? Like you now starting with this meeting, what wanted you to check? Like what was important for you, and how the negotiation process has been going? Because I guess it's been, how long did it take? Like several months? Like
we met Cornerstone in October 2019. So it was
not that long.
No, not that long.
Wow.
So the M&A process, it's very intense. It's very complicated. It's very different from a fundraising because you don't pitch the same way. You want to have the term sheet as late as you can because you want to make sure that once you sign the term sheet, you have no risk that it won't go to the end. You need to manage the timing. So we knew that, for instance, some French players will make an offer very, very fast. So we started to address the US players because most of our potential acquirers were American. So we started to address them very early in the process and keep, the French should be able to shoot fast for the end. Cornerstone, I met the CEO in October. Then what we did is we do a demo. He see that the tech is interesting, the product is interesting. He loved the value proposition. I'm able also to see that guy has a very entrepreneurial mindset. He's a founder, so he's been doing that for 20 years. In fact, he built Cornerstone from scratch. So I also said that the culture matches with the Clustree culture, and then it's just okay, we are seduced by each other and we go to the next step. This is what is weird also in the M&A process is you can have just bad news. The only good news is to go to the next step. You know, it's very different from fundraising or where it's a lot of, like enthusiasm and all that. So first meeting, we do the demo, and then I had to do it a lot because you need to show that to marketing people at Cornerstone, to product people, to have the advice of everyone. And so after those first appointments, what we did is a deep dive in the technology. Even if we didn't sign an LOI, but just an NDA, we wanted to make sure that we show the most we can, so that we eliminate all the risks that can happen after the signature of the LOI and during the due diligence. So it was almost pre-due diligence, very deep in the tech, in the data set, in the algorithm, in the product, everything.
How did you feel?
Sorry?
How did you feel during that time?
You feel very stressed. The thing is, you need to carry all by yourself almost. So you need to absorb all the stress yourself, to do most of the thing yourself, because you want to keep confidentiality with the team. So you need to be a control freak and deal with hundreds of different actions from very eclectic spectrum. So, and it's important that you carry all that by yourself, because absolutely no one cares even 10% as much as you care, because your VC, they do have, a diverse portfolio with other companies. They are invested in dozens of startups, so they don't have the same risk. Your lawyers and bankers, it's a success fee basis, and they have a lot of different processes at the same time. And your employees, they can find a very cool job very easily. But if you sell your business or if you don't sell your business, it doesn't have the same impact on your track record. So it's very stressful and it's a lot of pressure. And you need to be very prepared, because, for instance, I had the first valuation discussion with Cornerstone just after a 6 hours meeting about our data. And the CEO took me in a beer bar in London. And his first question was, what are your expectations? And so if you don't prepare to deal with that, it's complicated to address that kind of question in that context.
What were your expectations?
What was
what was your figure in mind?
So I didn't have figure in mind, and I didn't share figure in mind. In fact, there is, as valuation negotiation as deals. So in our case, the main leverage was the competition on the deal and what our VCs were expected. So there is also a lot of different ways to negotiate, and I negotiated in a very how can I say that, sane rational, yes, sane and rational way with them. So I told them later that we wanted to do the deal with them, that we preferred them, but that we also had other bidders, and that VCs, we needed to have, the go from the VC. So the idea was to orientate them in a valuation zone that was good for us, without giving any price, but with indicators. So the valuation of the last round, the way that the company progressed since then, but also other elements. For instance, we discussed about the other offers we received without disclosing it, but with being enough precise that they understood under what they couldn't shoot, and also discussing about the type of players we had around the deals without naming them, so that we didn't breach the NDA, but so that they understood that their competitors were there. So, and with all vendors, this is what we did.
Wow, that must have been really intense. And so finally you closed. You signed the deal in January and announced it. You announced it in the press the same day as you announced it to your team.
Yes.
How did it go?
It's weird to do this. In our case, we didn't have other option, because CSOD is a Nasdaq listed company. So the day they did the signing, they needed to announce it to the press. And we couldn't breach confidentiality before the signing. So of course, some people in the team were aware of that. Our key people, our head of data, our head of product, because they were involved in, the due diligence process. But most of the people discovered it the same day. And so it's weird because there is a lot of emotion. And so that day is very special in my mind because we all shared a lot of emotion. Everyone was very happy. Because they knew that we didn't raise since 2 years. They didn't know what was happening. And so they was very happy. They were very proud that we sold to an American company at that amount and that it was full cash and that they were putting the product at the center of their product. So they felt proud because they built that and we all built that together. So that day was very cool. It's more about, 2-3 days after the weekend when they came back to the office and they started to wonder what will happen to me. What will be my job at Cornerstone? Will I like the culture? Will I like the people? And so we did something very cool. It's like the chief executive EME of CSOD came with 3 other managers of Cornerstone, and they spent the whole day with us presenting the company, presenting what was the ambition for Clustree. Our team saw that we were very welcomed and everyone was waiting for us there. And so it helped. But yeah, you need to spend lots of time with your team after the announcement. It's very important.
And no change, like the people, all the same team is staying, and I mean, what's
there is a lot of change because now they are working with people in Santa Monica. Yeah. So it's a bit of change in the way they manage their life, but they are all still working together as a lab inside Cornerstone to nurture all the Cornerstone product, to analyze all the Cornerstone data, because it's a company with 3,600 customers. So they have a lot of data to analyze for our AI team. And they acquired Saba for more than $1 billion 1 month after Clustree. So even more data, even more customers. And so they are very proud, it's the indisputable leader, Cornerstone, in learning and now also in career path. So no, it's very cool for them, and they all have great package in terms of, RSU, salary, job, role, all that.
All right, cool. Well done. Bravo, Bénédicte. I mean, it must have been tough. And how do you feel now?
Relieved, because as you said, it's a lot of pressure, it's a lot of intensity. It's hard to realize everything you have achieved because you need to switch in the mindset. So it takes a bit of time, and the lockdown is a bit weird in that context as well. But I'm very proud also because everything we have fought for, the energy we have put in that, will become even more important in a bigger player. And it's a cool exit, because of the commercial traction we had and the technology we had, having the full cash, no earn-out, almost $20 million exit with an American company. It's great. And I think we need to be pragmatic. Not all companies can have crazy exit. Some companies have a cool tech and a cool product, but are struggling. And if they were embedded in a bigger company that has, all the sales part and is able to deliver that to all customers, then we should encourage that kind of very pragmatic, smaller, like mid-market exit. I think it's important for entrepreneurs to understand that this is doable and this is a very cool story, in fact.
Question, like the topic of the biases are really like important even more right now. I mean, it's with the Black Lives Matter movement, and it has an impact on every on everyone, and in every industries, and especially in tech. We are wondering like how to change that. Is Clustree relevant for this kind of change? Like in a company, if I use Clustree, am I like actively going against all the racial bias?
You are, because we don't analyze, of course, everything around racial, but we don't analyze the age. We don't take into consideration, like the kind of school you did. And as we are skills-based, the idea is to empower people and recommend people based on the skills. It's same also for men and women. If I ask a woman how many skills she has, she will typically declare 5, where men will imagine 15. So we also have those limiting biases ourselves, being a woman, being from, being Black, being whatever. So the idea is we don't take into consideration that. We make the algorithm train on a data set where we remove everything that could be a bias, picture, gender, race, all that. And at the end, what we deliver is recommendation based on the real potential of people. So yes.
All right, cool. Well, we are already at the end of this good vibe, Bénédicte. How do you feel for yourself, I mean, professionally? What do you want to do now?
So now I'm really involved in making sure that the integration of Clustree is happening well, making sure that the whole team is integrated, the technology, the product, our customers are satisfied. So I'm focusing on that. Then, of course, the idea is how you can address the real topics. And we all, I think, have in mind with that lockdown that real topics. There is other topics than HR that are way more important. Here, of course, we are fighting against biases, but the environment, the planet, the education of our child to have more creativity in the way we educate them, how we can have more bolder person, and how we tackle all those topics is something very important. So I'm thinking about all that in many different ways.
Interesting. Thank you, Bénédicte. I love to end a good vibe on a musical note. What has been your song? Like, what do you listen to feel good right now?
There is a song I love to have good vibes, which is called Ave Mucho from Valère. It's a Canadian band.
Ave Mucho?
Yes. The band is Valère.
Mr. Valère.
Yeah.
Let's listen to that. Cool. I like it.
You know, you see, suppose we was to raise the bar.
Raise the bar. That's you. Thank you very much, Bénédicte.
Thank you, Alice. Thank you all.
You've been very quiet in the chat, my friend. It's okay. No worries. But if you want to meet with other people who've been following this good vibe, you can go in networking and click on it. And you will meet every 5 minutes someone who's been following this good vibe.